An oil lamp lit a warning light on a mountain. The distress fire of Gondor quickly burned, signaling the coming of a great war. The warning fire spread rapidly along the rugged mountain range from place to place, eventually reaching the border of Rohan. As soon as Aragorn saw the distress signal, he immediately ran to report the urgent situation to King Theoden of Rohan. Aragorn asked the king if they should send troops to help. Theoden thought for a moment and then decided to help Gondor. The king ordered the entire army of Rohan to be assembled to prepare to deal with the hundreds of thousands of orcs and Gondor. The king assigned the generals to gather the troops within 2 days. He would personally lead a force to the rescue. After 2 days, Theoden arrived at the assembly point and prepared to set up camp on the mountainside. At this time, General Aragorn reported that they had mobilized only 6,000 soldiers. King Theoden looked at the sparse army and sighed. The number of soldiers was less than half of what he had expected. However, the tense situation forced Aragorn to urge quick action. After listening, King Theoden reluctantly agreed. At night, a mysterious figure appeared and changed the situation. This person was the king of the elves named Elrond, who was also Aragorn's future father-in-law. He said that with only 6,000 soldiers of Rohan, Gondor would hardly be able to withstand this attack. Because Sauron not only had 200,000 orcs, but he had also gathered elephants from the southern tribes and a pirate fleet from Umbar. Unless Aragorn could summon the army of the dead sealed in the Mountain of Souls. 3,000 years ago, this army had sworn allegiance to the king of Gondor and fought together against Sauron. But when the war broke out between the alliance of men and the elves, they were timid and fled without fighting, so they were cursed and their souls could not be released. Only when they were forgiven by the king of Gondor could they be reincarnated. So Elrond brought the holy sword Anduril of the kings of Gondor to Aragorn to summon the army of the cursed. This sword was once broken by Sauron in a great war, but thanks to the power of the king of Gondor's blood, in a moment of danger, it still exerted its ultimate power to cut off Sauron's ring finger. In order to protect the important strategic area of Middle-earth, Elrond ordered the blacksmith to repair the sword Anduril. After being persuaded by Elrond, Aragorn agreed to take the sword Anduril and go to the Mountain of Souls to gather the strongest army in history. The next morning, Aragorn and his 2 close friends, the dwarf Gimli and the elven prince Legolas, set out on the path of death. As soon as they reached the cave entrance, they immediately felt the eerie atmosphere everywhere, causing everyone to immediately be on high alert. The horses seemed to sense the danger approaching, so they panicked and ran away. But Aragorn still held the holy sword in his hand and did not hesitate to enter first. Legolas gathered all his courage and followed behind. As for Gimli, because he did not want to lose to Legolas, he tried to enter last. Not long after entering, they not only saw skulls scattered all over the ground, but they were also surrounded and harassed by ghosts. The deeper they went, the more stifling the atmosphere became. Everyone took each step carefully to avoid breaking the pile of bones. Then they came to a large hall. Suddenly, a voice rang out in the air. "Who dares to enter my territory?" The dead human king slowly emerged. Only then did everyone realize with horror that this cave was a place where countless terrifying souls were imprisoned. But this army will be the force that will wipe out the most powerful orcs, because they can be immune to all physical attacks. Aragorn said that I have come to order you to fulfill your oath, but the opponent said that only the king of Gondor can order me. Aragorn took the holy sword of his ancestors and used the identity of the king of Gondor to hope that these spirits would regain their honor and march to Gondor with him to fight. However, without the order from the king of men, everyone was silent. It seemed that they were considering. At this time, Gimli bluntly criticized them for breaking their promise when they were alive. Now they were dead without any honor. Aragorn saw that the ghosts were not moved, so he immediately assured them that after they defeated Sauron's great orc army, he would definitely help them to be freed. But the king of men only smiled faintly and disappeared with the cold ghosts. No matter how much Aragorn tried to persuade him, it was useless. Finally, the souls that had disappeared with the gloomy wind left no trace. At that moment, the ground suddenly shook violently. Then, several skulls appeared under their feet. It turned out that the rock mountain in front of them had begun to crack. While they were panicking, countless skulls poured out from the soul door like a flood. Aragorn quickly told everyone to quickly leave this dangerous place. The skulls rolled like a river breaking its dam. Fortunately, before being submerged in this cave, they had run to another cave entrance. At that moment, they saw a pirate fleet heading towards Gondor to support Sauron. This scene made Aragorn and his comrades extremely desperate. Aragorn's eyes were red, and he sat down on the ground. He helplessly watched the enemy that was about to pass right in front of him. However, when everything seemed hopeless, the situation suddenly changed. The dead king of men suddenly appeared and said that they would join the fight. Aragorn and his comrades then approached the shore near the pirate fleet, intending to persuade the pirates to retreat. Their strange actions were quickly discovered by the pirate leader. Aragorn told Legolas to shoot an arrow to warn the pirate leader. Unexpectedly, the arrow missed. It seemed that all hope of negotiation had vanished. At night, the orcs took advantage of the darkness to quietly approach the fortress near Gondor, where the second son of the chief of Gondor, Faramir, was in charge of guarding. The night was unusually quiet, making them predict that the enemy would not attack. A guard heard the noise and was about to go check when he was shot dead on the spot. The sound of falling immediately alerted Faramir and his soldiers. Faramir quickly ordered everyone to bring weapons and equipment to the riverbank. At this time, the orcs' ships had also docked. Under the command of the leader, they suddenly attacked. Faramir quickly led his troops quietly into the battlefield to hide. Faramir planned to wait for the enemy to enter deep and then suddenly attack them, leaving them unprepared. Faramir saw the right opportunity, so he decisively ordered a fierce attack. They knew how important this fortress was. If they lost it, Gondor would become the next target of the orcs. Therefore, even though they faced countless enemy troops, they were determined to fight to the end. While Faramir was fighting fiercely to keep the fortress, another group of orcs secretly penetrated the second line of defense and continued to fight. The battle lasted all night and until the next morning. Due to the large number of troops, the human army was defeated and suffered heavy casualties. Finally, the fortress fell. Faramir decided to retreat to Gondor's capital Minas Tirith to preserve their strength. However, before they could abandon the citadel and flee, Nagler, riding a terrifying flying beast, suddenly joined the battle and caused trouble. Everyone had no choice but to ride their horses, prepare to run out of the citadel. However, the speed of horses in this flat land was nothing compared to the flying beasts. Most of the soldiers died while fleeing. Even their horses could not escape. When the flying beasts were brutally slaughtering, the wizard Gandalf, wearing a white cloak and holding a magic wand, sent his horse galloping. As soon as he entered the attack range, Gandalf immediately used a light spell. The flying beasts were afraid of the light and immediately fled the scene. Everyone was finally saved. The soldiers opened the gates of the fortress to welcome Gandalf back. In the end, most of the soldiers returned safely to the capital of Gondor, Minas Tirith. However, their bravery was not only not recognized by the governor, but they were also severely criticized. He blamed his second son for being useless. If his eldest son Boromir was still alive, the fortress would definitely not have fallen into enemy hands. Faramir heard this and asked sadly, "Father, you always wanted me to switch with my brother. Did you want me to blame him so that he could live?" His father answered yes. Faramir turned away with tears in his eyes. Faramir led the elite troops to continue the battle, determined to regain the lost fortress to prove his ability. This time, everyone understood that the hope of survival was almost hopeless. But for the honor of the soldiers and to receive recognition from his father, Faramir still resolutely lived forward. They were not afraid. Each person bravely advanced towards the fortress occupied by the orcs. However, before the battle, all the soldiers heroically sacrificed themselves under the attack order of the orc leader. Just like that, the strong young men fell under the indifference of the highest official. The Witch-kin king of Angmar saw that the opportunity had come, so he immediately ordered the entire army to attack Gondor and destroy them all. Sauron's hundreds of thousands of troops began a general attack on the human capital to the sound of the mighty drums. In preparation for the battle to capture Gondor's capital, Minas Tirith, they mobilized many cannibal monsters and several towers to attack fortress. The illustrious commander of the orcs rode the beast and followed right behind. Gandalf suddenly panicked when he saw the large number of enemy troops. First, with the support of the cannibal monsters, the orcs used catapults to launch a long-range attack on the human fortress. Then they increased the catapults to knock the warriors on the fortress walls out of position. On this side, the humans also prepared catapults and were just waiting for Gandalf to order a counterattack. A giant boulder flew out. The moment the boulder landed, it repelled a wave of enemy attacks. The commander of the orcs was not willing to give up, so he immediately ordered a return fire. The two sides fired back and forth, opening a fierce battle that caused both sides to suffer heavy losses. At that moment, the Naglers rode on terrifying flying beasts to join the battle. They swooped down towards the capital under the command of the Witch King. The shrill cries of the flying beasts made the soldiers extremely miserable. The Naglers attacked the soldiers on the walls of the fortress and threw them down the wall thanks to their air superiority. Not only that, they also destroyed the catapults on the walls of the fortress. At this time, Gandalf saw the man-eating monsters slowly approaching and ordered the soldiers to shoot arrows. However, this did not stop their advance. The assault tower in the fortress quickly brought the orcs to attack the fortress wall to break the human defense line. The wizard Gandalf once again showed his close combat ability. While the two sides were fighting fiercely on the fortress wall, the orcs carried their hammers to the fortress gate. They did not know that this was the fortress with the strongest defense system in the kingdom kingdom of Gondor. Not only did they fail to break the fortress gate, they were also attacked by soldiers on the fortress wall. After a long time of no results, the orc commander prepared to use weapons to attack the fortress, only to see under the control of 3 ancient rhinos combined with several man-eating monsters, a giant machine was pulled onto the battlefield. Several man-eating monsters struggled to pull the Gondor fortress-destroying hammer to the best position and then smash the hammer with terrible destructive power into the fortress gate. This battle lasted from morning to night. Before the fortress gate was broken, Gandalf led several groups of soldiers to the scene to arrange their troops. Seeing the last fortress gate broken after the continuous blows of the hammer, Gandalf immediately ordered the soldiers to prepare for defense. Immediately after, several man-eating monsters in armor suddenly appeared. Although they were huge, they were still unable to withstand the power of the bow and arrow. One was immediately defeated. At the same time, the orcs poured into the citadel. The soldiers were attacked by man-eating monsters, so they continuously retreated. Seeing the tense situation, Gandalf again showed his top-notch close combat skills to deal with the monster. To preserve the remaining forces, Gandalf ordered the soldiers to temporarily retreat to defend on the second floor. The next morning, the orcs continued to pour into the citadel. After a night of fierce fighting, many soldiers and civilians died tragically at the hands of ferocious monsters. Even so, they still resisted strongly. They vowed to protect their homeland until their last breath. On the other side, Gandalf led Pippin to run on the citadel wall when they were suddenly blocked. Gandalf was not afraid. He held his staff, ready to fight the Witch King. The Witch King pulled out a dark spell to eliminate Gandalf and Pippin. The Witch King smashed Gandalf's staff and threw both of them off their horses. But as the Witch King prepared to strike, the trumpets of reinforcement sounded, distracting him. Then the Witch King rode his flying beast away from the walls to support the orcs. The 6,000 men of Rohan marched into the battlefield at dawn to relieve the humans. After days of tiring marching, they finally reached the front lines. The orcs saw this and adjusted their formations, ready to fight. As soon as they arrived at the battlefield, King Theoden immediately analyzed the situation of the battle, then returned to the front lines and gave a pep talk to his soldiers. The orcs were everywhere. This scene made some soldiers afraid. At this time, the soldiers on both sides held their weapons in their hands and were ready to fight. King Theoden raised his sword and encouraged each warrior to be ready to fight. For honor and justice, everyone was filled with spirit and courage. Under the leadership of King Theoden, the brave warriors of Rohan charged towards the enemy with great enthusiasm. They advanced without hesitation, showing their unshakable determination. When the orcs saw the Rohan army attacking, they immediately received orders from their commander and shot arrows like rain. Although some warriors were hit by arrows and fell off their horses, they did not retreat but continued to charge forward like sharp knives, stabbing straight into the enemy formation. Unexpectedly, the fierce momentum and bravery of thousands of warriors made the enemy panic and lose all morale. When the two sides met, the orcs were quickly routed. The roars and overwhelming momentum of the Rohan army quickly pushed the enemy into a desperate corner. Some were crushed under the hooves of their horses before they could even run away. The Rohan warriors swept the battlefield, causing countless losses to the ORCs. They were determined to destroy all the monsters that were causing trouble in Middle-earth. In the end, the orcs were so scared that they threw down their armor and fled in panic. King Theoden saw this and immediately ordered to chase the enemy to the riverbank to deal with the remaining troops. However, at this moment, they felt the ground begin to shake. Looking far away, they saw a giant army approaching. This was the elephant army of the Haradrim under Sauron. King Theoden was not afraid and ordered his soldiers to quickly prepare for battle. Although they did not have much chance of defeating these giant and extremely dangerous elephants, King Theoden still bravely led his army to charge and confront them. The battle on the battlefield officially began. Although they had followed King Theoden for many years and were all good at fighting, they still had difficulty against the elephants. Some soldiers were unfortunately thrown hundreds of meters away. Some were not able to dodge and were knocked down by the rope between the elephants' tusks. At the moment, their only way was to dodge and be careful of the Haradrim archers on the elephants' backs as the two sides fought. The elephant driver on the command tower took the opportunity to eliminate a group of Rohan soldiers. This scene accidentally caught the eyes of the fleeing general. At that moment, he realized that the fatal weakness of the elephant army was the drivers on their backs. So the general immediately drew his bow and fired a precise shot, killing the driver, causing the elephant to lose control. It crashed straight into its companion next to it, causing both to fall. Meanwhile, Princess Elwyn disguised herself as a man, holding a pair of swords, led Merry through the elephant line and powerfully slashed twice, cutting off an elephant's leg. The situation then began to change when the Rohan army discovered the enemy's weakness. A group of soldiers joined forces to attack the same target, causing the elephant to lose balance and collapse. Now Nagler rode the flying beast straight down to the battlefield. It opened its mouth wide and bit King Theoden, then threw him away. King Theoden died on the spot. Seeing that, Elwyn rushed to cover her father's body, but the Witch King of Angmar swung his sword to attack her. Elwyn ignored her fear and swung her sword repeatedly to cut off the monster's head. Then she picked up her shield and faced Angmar. However, Elwyn quickly fell into a disadvantageous position. After only a few moves, her shield was broken and she fell down. Angmar strangled Elwyn and laughed at her. At the critical moment, Mary suddenly appeared from behind and stabbed the Witch King, helping Elwyn escape from his grasp and regain the battle. Then Elwyn took off his helmet to reveal his identity as a woman. The Witch King never dreamed that his opponent was a woman. Finally, she left in his arrogance. At the port, a group of ORCs were waiting for reinforcements from the pirates, but instead, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli appeared. The orcs were disappointed, but they quickly became excited when they saw that there were only 3 people facing them. Aragorn quickly drew his holy sword Anduin and led the army to charge. The immortal souls quickly wiped out the orcs and headed straight to the battlefield. Their appearance completely changed the situation of the battle. Immediately after that, the orc commander died on the spot. Then Legolas and Gimli rushed in to sweep. At this moment, an elephant suddenly charged towards Legolas. So Legolas relied on the agility of the elf clan to grab the elephant's tusk, then jumped to the elephant's leg and grabbed the elephant's leg hair to climb up its body, preparing to make the decisive blow. The archers suddenly appeared to block his way, but because their fighting power was too weak, they were dealt with one by one. Legolas took advantage of the rope to swing to the elephant's side. He seized the opportunity to cut the cable that secured the control platform. The control platform lost balance, dragging the enemy to the ground. Then they were immediately overwhelmed by the human army. Legolas shot 3 arrows into the elephant's head, causing it to fall in pain. He landed safely and gracefully. The battle was coming to an end. Only a few soldiers remained on the battlefield. However, they were quickly pursued and killed by the human army. The orcs inside the citadel were still surrounding the soldiers, unaware of the danger that was approaching. The large human army wiped out the enemy in the blink of an eye. Finally, the battle ended. Victory belonged to the humans, but the price was the blood and bones of countless warriors and civilians. Aragorn fulfilled his promise to the human army, freeing them from the curse that had lasted for 1,000 years. A gentle breeze blew by, sending their souls to rest. To distract the orcs in Mordor and give Frodo a chance to destroy the ring, Aragorn gathered his army and marched to Mordor to prepare for the decisive battle. After many days of tiring marching, the human army finally reached the Black Gate. They gathered their troops and shouted. A herald came out of the gate and held up Frodo's mithril armor and announced that Frodo had been tortured to the point of exhaustion. Hearing this, the whole army was angry and sad, but Aragorn did not believe these words. Aragorn suddenly swung his sword and cut off the herald's head while he was speaking passionately. Immediately after that, the orc army rushed out of the Black Gate and prepared to fight the 5,000 frightened human soldiers. To encourage the soldiers and help them regain their courage, Aragorn gave a powerful speech. For all that they loved and cherished, they must kill all their enemies. The orcs surrounded the soldiers of Rohan. Not even an ant could escape. Although they knew this was a battle with no chance of victory, everyone was still willing to sacrifice themselves to buy time for Frodo to complete his mission. Facing the enemy, Aragorn did not hesitate but gently said, "For Frodo." After saying that, Aragorn raised his sword Anduin and rushed straight into the enemy ranks. Aragorn's brave spirit inspired the warriors. They all rose up and fought fiercely with the orcs. This battle was not only to distract the enemy, but also for the peace of Middle-earth. So everyone fought with great courage and determination. However, they did not retreat even if they had to die. In the meantime, the Naglers rode the flying beasts to the battlefield. Fortunately, Gandalf cast a spell to call the eagles from the Misty Mountains to reinforce. The 2 species fought in the air. Thanks to their sharp beaks, the eagles easily dealt with the beasts, reducing the pressure on the human army. While the enemy focused all their attention on the battlefield, Frodo and Sam successfully avoided Sauron's eyes and reached the foot of the mountain. However, the closer Frodo got to his goal, the more the ring occupied his mind. Seeing that he was only 1 step away from the volcano that could destroy the ring, Frodo used up all his last strength and struggled to move forward. The truth was not as expected. Both of them were finally exhausted and collapsed. They could not stand up to continue completing the mission. Sam once again struggled to stand up and hug Frodo tightly. Sam's eyes filled with tears and encouraged Frodo. Sam told Frodo about the peaceful life in his homeland. Sam hoped that Frodo could overcome himself to regain his spirit. But because the ring was getting closer and closer to Sauron's eyes, Frodo's body could not bear that terrible burden anymore. Sam told Frodo that although I cannot carry the ring for you, I can carry you. Sam used his strong will to carry carry Frodo on his back. Even though his eyes were red, Sam's body was exhausted, but he still firmly shouldered the responsibility, step by step, towards the volcano. Just as they were about to reach the cave entrance, Gollum suddenly followed them and rushed out to snatch the ring from Frodo. Seeing that he could not do anything, Gollum pushed them both to the ground. Then Gollum strangled Frodo. Because Gollum loved the ring so much, he did not hesitate to do everything to prevent anyone from destroying the ring. At the decisive moment, Sam picked up a nearby rock and threw it at Gollum, helping Frodo escape the dangerous situation. Gollum stood up in dissatisfaction and bit Sam. Taking advantage of the moment when the two were fighting for the ring, Frodo staggered towards his target alone. After injuring Gollum, Sam realized that Frodo had disappeared. Sam immediately chased after Frodo's trail. Soon, Sam entered the volcano. Sam did not hesitate to tell Frodo to take out the ring and throw it into the hot lava below. Only when the ring was destroyed did the evil power that threatened all of Middle-earth finally vanish. When Sam begged Frodo to let go, the evil power from the ring seemed to take over Frodo more and more, until he was completely subdued. This made Sam immediately feel a little doubtful about life. Frodo smiled devilishly. He put on the ring and disappeared. As a result, the Eye of Sauron sensed the location of the ring and immediately ordered Naegler to ride his flying beast to Mordor to retrieve the ring. Gollum silently knocked Sam down from behind. Gollum identified Frodo's trail in an instant. Gollum jumped on Frodo, who was hiding, and fought fiercely, biting off Frodo's ring finger, revealing his true form. Then Gollum couldn't wait any longer. Gollum took the ring from the severed finger and admired the treasure it had lost. While Gollum was dancing happily with joy, Frodo suddenly rushed to get the ring back. During the struggle, both accidentally fell down the deep cliff. While falling, Gollum was still immersed in the temptation of the ring and completely forgot the danger that was approaching. So both Gollum and the ring fell into the hot lava. Sam woke up and rushed to see. He discovered Frodo luckily hanging on the cliff. After being advised by Sam, Frodo was finally no longer fascinated by the ring. Frodo was pulled away from the dangerous edge by Sam. The ring was finally destroyed. On the battlefield, the warriors were still fiercely fighting the dark forces. When the Eye of Sauron struggled painfully to connect with the ring, the orc army began to become uneasy, attracting everyone's attention. They all looked towards the dangerous land of Mordor. They saw the Black Tower, containing the Eye of Sauron, suddenly collapse. Everyone was so excited that they were moved to tears. They knew that Frodo had succeeded. The shockwave quickly spread across the battlefield. In the blink of an eye, the Mordor base that had been built for thousands of years was completely destroyed. This was followed by a volcanic eruption. A series of flying beasts were burned alive in molten lava. This made everyone worried about Frodo's safety. However, Frodo and Sam helped each other leave the volcano and jumped to a small island in time to hide. But the lava under their feet made them feel like they had lost all hope of survival. When the two accepted their fate, the wizard Gandalf rode a giant eagle to save them. When Frodo woke up, he realized that he was being treated in the elven territory of Rivendell. The humans had just reclaimed the capital Minas Tirith. Aragorn had become king and married the beautiful princess Elwyn as queen. He became the greatest victor. The elves fulfilled their mission. The era of human rule over Middle-earth began. The ringbearer Parkins led his nephew Frodo and the elves on their journey to Aemon. The film ends here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, and see you again.